Well, good morning, church. Good, man. Y'all awake this morning. That's good. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I wanted to say this. I need you to remember that song that we just sang. And this was one of those, I didn't know exactly what I was going to be sharing when the worship set and everything was playing this week. And so sitting back there and listening to that, I was really taken aback by it, honestly. And now my nose is going to perpetually run the rest of the sermon. But real quick, before we get started, I want you to raise your hand if you were here last week. Raise your hand if you're here. Okay, good. If you weren't here and you didn't get a t-shirt decal, you're going to be able to do that after the service. But real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about last week because I thought it was awesome. And I wanted to say this. The new logo, the meaning behind it, everything that was shared, and hopefully you noticed everything changed last week. Every piece of paper, hopefully all of them. We may have missed some. No, but the doors, the sign at the road, all of that was there were months of preparation and then kind of a week of insanity to make it all happen. I'll just be honest with you. But I wanted to do one thing this morning. We had, the staff worked incredibly hard. But we had some volunteers who worked especially hard. We're here every evening, and I thought about naming them, but then I was like, man, I will screw that up sure as the world, and then I'll feel awful. But we had some people, man, that spent time up here every night on the sign, in the building, getting t-shirts ready, everything. And so real quick, if you don't mind, I'd like for you to give them a hand and tell them thank you for all their hard work, too. It was really special. What I'm most excited about, though, is what Ronnie shared with us in his message last week about the logo and its meaning, and that is that what Golden Corner Church wants to be, and that's not that anything changed. This is kind of who we've always been, but we did kind of find a new way to do it, and that is we want to be a place where people can find what they're looking for. And we want to help people find what they're looking for. And we believe that what they're looking for can be found in the context of healthy relationships, a healthy relationship with God and a healthy relationships with other people, right? Y'all remember all this? Okay, good. And so we talked a good bit about that, but my favorite thing about last week was how challenging I thought it was and how motivating I thought it was, because Ronnie challenged all of us to make sure that we found what we're looking for. He said, listen, here's the deal. Are you where you need to be in your relationship with God? Are you following God? Do you know Him? Do you love Him? Are you on this mission with us? Or is that, you know what I mean? So he kind of challenged the church in that way. Is this what you want to be? Is this what you want to do? Do you want to be a waypoint? And I see a lot of t-shirts out there right now, so that's exciting. And it kind of led me to this morning. It kind of led me to the message this morning. And because as I sat there last week and I listened to Ronnie, I realized that I thought there were some people that we probably need to address. I needed to talk to some of you. And because some of you last week when you heard the message and you kind of heard that challenge, you know God, you love God, are you following God in your life? Are you on this mission? Do you want to help other people? There's some of you that were sitting here, and can I be honest? You guys know how I like to be honest. Some of you have no intentions of doing that. Like you heard it, but you just can't. And I don't mean in a mean, hateful way, you're not going to do it. Like you don't like purple shirts or something. I'm not wearing that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Not in a mean way. Some of you couldn't make yourselves if you tried. There's some people here who don't want to move forward with God. Now, I know that's hard to believe because they're here at church on Sunday morning. You would think everybody here in church wants to follow God, right? There's some here who can't. Some of you here, you don't have the strength nor the inclination for the mission that's before you. As Ronnie spoke last week, I know that there are people here that you said, man, that sounds good, Ronnie. It sounds good. I hear you. I love this church. I love the people here. It all sounds good. But I'm completely immobile. I don't possibly know how I could help. I don't know how I could pursue this relationship with God like you're talking about. I am done. You stopped. At some point, you just stopped. Maybe you had a growing, strong relationship with God at one point. Maybe you were on mission. You were serving Him. But at some point, you just stopped. You stopped trying. Do you guys agree that I'm probably talking to somebody this morning? There's somebody in here. I think I may know why you feel that way. I think I may know why some of you feel that way. And this morning, if you'll let me, I would like to talk about it. I'd like to tell you why I think you may feel that way. And if possible, I'd like to encourage you and give you some advice. Are you okay with that, church? Okay, then let's do it. Now, in order to do that, I got to do something. Anybody want to guess what it is? Tell a story. I got to tell a story. That's what we do here, man. I got to tell a story. And today our story is centered around Elijah. Now, Elijah was God's man. He was a prophet who boldly spoke for God, okay? And I want to make sure you understand this. Elijah knew God well. He and God were as close as you could possibly imagine, okay? Elijah was God's man. And I love the way one commentary said it, because Elijah was a prophet in a very tumultuous time in the history of the people of Israel. In other words, the people of Israel were being ruled by Ahab and Jezebel, okay? Y'all got that? Ahab and Jezebel were king and queen, and they had led the people of Israel to worship the gods of Baal, okay? And so they were worshiping false gods. And so they were fully enthralled in it, the whole country, everybody. And Elijah dealt with that. Elijah, one of the commentaries I read said Elijah came to confront, not to comfort. That was what he was about. And so that's who Elijah was, and that's where we kind of are going to pick up. I got to give you guys some background. In 1 Kings chapter 17, one of the very first things we see Elijah do is God speaks through Elijah, and Elijah issues this drought. He said, here's the deal, guys. It's not going to rain. It's not going to rain again for a long time. And of course, because it was God and Elijah that came to fruition, and Elijah had to run for his life. Elijah ended up hiding. He became like most wanted man. He ends up hiding in a cave and is fed by ravens. He drinks from a brook. Did y'all hear that? He's fed by ravens. That's pretty awesome. All right, and he drinks from a brook. Eventually, the brook began to dry up, and Elijah was sent. God sent Elijah to a widow's home where he was fed by with this much flour and this much oil, and God just kept replacing it every single day. Y'all remember that story? I actually used that story recently in a sermon series called Regifted. And so Elijah is taken care of by the widow. In 1 Kings chapter 18, we're about 3 years into this drought. In 1 Kings chapter 18, God tells Elijah, he said, hey man, it is time for you to go out, and I need you to meet with Ahab. And so Elijah goes, and there's some messengers and things that happen, and this is where the contest happens on Mount Carmel. Are y'all familiar with this story? Shake your heads yes if you've heard this story. So this is where the contest on Mount Carmel happens, and what happens is, I basically give you the Reader's Digest version of it. Elijah challenges the 450 prophets of Baal to a duel. Okay? Super cool story. If you've never read it, you should go read it. It's amazing. 450 prophets versus one man in Elijah and God. And so Elijah goes up and he basically lays out the rules. He says, here's what we're going to do. All right, you guys build an altar and you pray to your God. I'm going to build an altar and I'm going to pray to my God. Whoever God sends fire to consume the offering wins. Fair deal? And so that's exactly what happens. So they build an altar, they pray to their gods. Guess what happens? Anybody want to say it? Nothing. Not a thing. That's exactly right. Nothing happens. They pray, they get wilder, they get crazier, nothing happens. Elijah steps up, said, all right, boys, my turn. He prays, guess what happens? Fireball from heaven comes down to the ground and consumes the entire altar. Consumes everything. Amazing. Fireball takes it all out. Elijah looks and he said, obviously, those 450 prophets are prophets of a false god, and it makes them fakes, and that makes them liars. And Ahab agrees, and they kill them all. Are you hearing this? They kill them all. 450. Sounds pretty good, don't it? Big victory, right? Say it. Say, big victory for God. Big victory for God. things are about to turn around. Things are about to change, right? You would think so. But not exactly. Not exactly. Ahab goes home. We're going to pick up in a story. Ahab goes home and he tells his wife. Now, husbands, listen to me. Y'all ever go home and tell your wife something and expect a particular reaction? And let's just say you don't get that. Y'all ever had that happen to you? It happened, man. About 2 years ago, I fell out of a tree stand. It was a very long and hard fall, okay? I left the imprint of myself in the ground, but luckily we had plowed around that stand, and so it was kind of not pillows, but it was ground. I walked away, mild concussion, hurt back. I was okay, though. Now, I believe that honesty is always the best policy. So when I got home from the hunting trip, I waited till I got home. I sat Brittany down. I said, hey, look, you're probably going to hear about this because all my friends make fun of me all the time. And I fell about 20 feet out of a stand. I'm okay. I'm hurting a little, but I'm okay. And I'll be honest with you guys. I expected her to, I expected her to say, well, you need to be more careful. I'm glad you're okay. And Brittany looked and she said, well, I'm glad you're okay. I said, that's exactly what I expected. 24 hours later, we're lying in the bed kind of the same time in there. And I can sense that she's mad at me. She's very angry. And I don't know why she's angry, but she's very angry. And so I ask her, I say, honey, what's wrong? I'm trying to think of what I may have done that day. And she said, nothing. And I'm good. And I said, what's wrong? She said, well, I'll tell you. And she sat up like a demon, a beautiful demon. And she commits to telling me, you're careless. You don't take care of yourself. You're not going to be able to walk one of these days because of all the idiotic things you do. Do you not care about our child? I would love for us to be grandparents one day and have little grandbabies. I'm like, how did we get to grandbabies? And I'll be honest with you, like I'm going to take it. No, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay, I hear you. And it didn't even end there. Like her reaction, it was big. Every time I went hunting, even now, she'll be like, you gonna wear a harness? So you gonna be careful? Or don't do anything stupid? I'm like, all right, can you climb up on the stepladder and get something off the shelf, or do you need a harness, honey? That is, so yeah, I'll never tell her if I get hurt again. And I expected a little bit of reaction, but it was a lot more than what I thought. Well, guess what? When Ahab got to Jezebel, it was the same sort of thing. When Ahab told Jezebel, we're going to read right here in verse 2, this was Jezebel's reaction. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah. She said, may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them, talking about our prophets. She threatened his life. Now, this is bad. This is a woman with a lot of power. This is a woman with incredible muscle, right? She's a queen. And Elijah knew all of that. She's going to hire every hitman, every soldier, every bounty hunter she can find, and she's going to put an incredible amount of money on his head for the person that can find Elijah and kill him. Elijah knows right off the bat, holy mackerel, this did not go the way I thought it was going to go. I thought that the people would see everything that happened and would change. But they didn't. Apparently, the situation hadn't changed. If anything, it had gotten worse. In verse 3, we read Elijah's reaction. Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. I want y'all to read this now with me. This is busting me up all week. Then he went on alone in the wilderness, traveling all day. And he sat down under a solitary broom tree and he prayed. And I want you to look what he prayed. He prayed that he might die. He'd had enough. That's literally what he says. I have had enough, Lord. He said, take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who's already died. How would you describe Elijah's state of mind right now? Do you think I'm safe to say he was finished? He was done. He was discouraged. He was incredibly disappointed, depressed. Sorry, D words is just what I ended up with. He was completely rocked. He was completely exhausted. And I want to make sure I'm fair to Elijah right here because I want you to understand what he had done. He had lived in the wilderness already for 3 years and then lived with the widow. And I don't want to take anything away from God because obviously being fed by birds is pretty amazing. Obviously being fed by the widow with the little flower, all that stuff's amazing. But I want you to make sure you understand that for quite some time during that drought, Elijah was surviving, and he was doing so because he was serving God. But I don't want to take but he was surviving. And now guess where he is again? After all of that miracle, everything that happened, he's right back in the wilderness. He's alone again. On the run, hiding, scared, exhausted. He finds himself right back in the same place, and nothing has changed. The people of Israel haven't turned back to him, back to God. And he just wants to die. He wants it to be over. If you can continue reading on this story, I'm just going to paraphrase this part, but God didn't take his life. Instead, what we see God do is God sends an angel. Did you hear that? God sent an angel to that broom tree, to Elijah. And apparently Elijah had gotten there with no food, no water, and that's being done, right? And this angel gets there and he feeds Elijah and gives him something to drink. And it says in the Bible that the angel stayed there while Elijah rested. So he sits there with him. Then that Elijah wakes up. I guess I don't know how much rest he got. He might have slept days. I don't know. But he wakes up. He's had some food. He's had something to drink. And the angel says, God would like for you to come talk to him on Mount Sinai. Do you think he can make the trip? And I don't know what possessed him, but Elijah, even in his state, as low as he felt, as much as he didn't want to, he got up on his feet and he traveled. He traveled for 40 days to Mount Sinai. When he arrived at Mount Sinai, he took up residence in another cave, and it wasn't long before God spoke to him. And I want you to read what God said to him right here. He said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" So he asked for him to come. Elijah gets there, and God's question is, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What's going on? You hear him? Elijah replied in verse 10, I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you. They've torn down your altars, and they killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. Can I change that just a little bit? I want you to listen to this. And I want you to continue to read that. I've done everything you've asked. I followed every step, followed every rule, made whatever sacrifices I need to make, lived where you've told me to live. I've took every job. I have completed every task you've asked me to do. And what's changed? Not a thing. Nothing has changed, God. The people of Israel haven't turned turned back to you. The circumstances hadn't gotten any better. As a matter of fact, God, I'm pretty sure that it's worse now back there than it's ever been. Jezebel, she's on a mission now. This plan, what we have done has been a complete and total failure. And I'm alone. Are you seeing this in that? I'm alone. There's no one here with me. I'm all by myself. I don't have anyone to help me. I don't have anyone to confide in. There's nobody that I could possibly trust. I am the very last of the people who follow you. And God, I am scared. Do you see all that in there? In verse 11, we see what God does. He says, go out and stand before me on the mountain. The Lord told him. Sorry. Elijah stood there, and the Lord passed by. Did you see that? The Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast. I can't see through my own eyes here, guys. Sorry. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose from the side of the mountain. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. Are you seeing this? And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and he went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. You know why? Because he knew God was there. You got to see this real quick. Little side note. How did God come to him? The windstorm, the earthquake, the fire, that was all just God on the way. That's all it was. God didn't come in all that chaos. When he got to Elijah, what does it say he did? He whispered to him. Because what Elijah had going on inside of him was chaos. That wasn't what God was bringing. God was bringing calm. Whisper. So here is Elijah with his cloak around his face, standing out in the cave, and God has come to speak with him. And the voice said, what are you doing here, Elijah? It's the same question. Hadn't he already asked that? When he spoke to Elijah's heart, hadn't he already asked that? Asked the same thing. What are you doing here? But guess what Elijah said? Does anybody want to guess? Say, not right now. Jeez. Elijah said the exact same thing he said the first time. I've done everything you've asked. Followed every step, took every job, completed every task, and nothing's changed. The plan's a complete and total failure. I've accomplished nothing. Circumstances haven't gotten any better. They've gotten worse, as a matter of fact. And I'm alone. And I don't have anybody. And I'm scared. Elijah said all those things again. In verse 15, God spoke and answered him. It says, then the Lord told him, you're going to have to bear with me to get through all this. Go back the same way you came. Go back and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive there, anoint Hazael to be the king of Aram, then anoint Jehu to be a grandson of Nimshi to be king of Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from the town of, you know what it is, I messed it up every time I try to say it, to replace you as my prophet. Anyone who escapes from Hazael will be killed by Jehu, and those who escape Jehu will be killed by Elisha. I want you to look. Yet I will preserve 7,000 others in Israel who have never bowed down to Baal or kissed him. Do you see what God just did right there? It's easy to miss because it's a lot of facts. It's the steps. It's the next steps of the plan. But God didn't say, okay, you're dismissed. Elijah, you're right. This has been horrible. You should quit. God didn't say, you know what, you're right. This is a failure. You're a failure. Let's just quit. If you'll look closely at those verses, God laid out the rest of the plan. Do you see it? God laid out the rest of the plan to Elijah. God pointed Elijah towards a friend that he was going to need down the road in Elisha, a protege. And God pointed out some key facts that Elijah didn't know about the 7,000 people who had never bowed down to Baal. God addressed every concern. He addressed every concern Elijah had, and it convinced Elijah, this time together in this talk, it convinced Elijah to get back up on his feet and get moving. Now, I told you that I knew there were some of you here today and you are completely rocked. You're sitting there and you hear us talk about a relationship with God. You hear us talk about following. I mean, every Sunday, that's pretty much what Sunday mornings are going to be about. And you hear that. And you know that that's where you are if I'm talking to you. I want to tell you something. This is my point this morning from that story. God won't quit on you, even if you have quit on him. God won't quit on you even if you quit on him. Do you hear me? Say it with me real quick. It'll help me feel better. God won't quit on you even if you quit on him. I need you to see this in the story. Elijah had quit. Can we agree? You end up in the desert, laying on your back under a broom tree with no supplies, nothing. And you ask God to please kill you. You've quit. Elijah was all those things we've already said. He was discouraged. He was disappointed. He was depressed. He was done. This man who had once served God, followed God, witnessed miracle after miracle, seen and done things that me and you will never understand, he had thrown in the towel. Can we all agree on that? Well, what did God do? I want to show you in the story. What did God do? Elijah's quit. He's under a broom tree. What did God do first? He sent an angel. I want you to see what he sent with the angel. He sent provisions. He provided for Elijah somebody to watch over him while he rested and to care for him. Then what did God do? Made a request, right? What did he say? Come talk to me. Do you see it in the story? Come talk to me. And Elijah get there, and you've got to see this. What did God do? Did God fly into a tangent? Well, what have you been? What's wrong with you? Did God do that? God asked a question. He said, what are you doing here? And then what did God do? Tell me the word. He listened. Elijah vented. He opened up, unloaded, unpacked, whatever the word is you want to use. Elijah shared with him what he was feeling. Shared every detail of what was going on inside of him. And I know God listened. And you want to know how I know God listened? Because he was so moved by what Elijah said, by what his man said, and how his man was feeling, that he felt the need. Are you ready? He felt the need to come down from heaven and come to that mountain and come to that cave and talk to him in person. Are you hearing me this morning? God listened to him and then came and talked to him in person. And once he got there in person, he asked again because he wanted to hear how Elijah felt in person. He wanted Elijah to know how much he cared about him. And then what did God do? God spoke to him. And God just didn't start in on everything, that he felt like Elijah was wrong about, but here was the bottom line. He laid out a lot of perspective in front of Elijah. Elijah felt like he had done everything he was supposed to do, and God said, there's more. That wasn't the end of my plan. This plan has not been a failure. This plan just isn't complete. Do you see that? Elijah said, I'm the only one left who follows you. God said, actually, no. There are 7,000 others who do. Elijah said, well, I'm all alone. And God said, no, you're not. You don't have to be. I'm going to send somebody for you. I'm going to send you to somebody who's going to help you. God pursued Elijah into the desert. He cared for Elijah through an angel, met with him, listened to Elijah multiple times. And God never gave up on him, even though Elijah had given up on him. Does this sound like you? Does this feel familiar to you? There's somebody this morning, guys, and you sit here Sunday after Sunday and you listen. As we talk about a relationship with God, we talk about following God, we talk about serving God. And all you feel is blah. And I believe that some of you, it's because you're where Elijah was. Some time ago, you quit. Maybe it was recent. Maybe it was a long time ago, but you quit. You're incredibly discouraged, disappointed, sad, maybe even angry, but you know this, you're immobilized. You don't want to keep going. You don't want to stay the course. Maybe it's something that's been done to you by others, the way Jezebel was pursuing Elijah, and he was scared about what she was going to do to him. Maybe it was a plan that you thought God had in store for you, something he had laid out in front of you, and now looking at your life, you feel like it's in complete shambles. It was an absolute train wreck of a plan. Maybe you feel like a failure. Maybe you feel like you failed at what God was wanting you to do or wanting you to experience, what he was calling you to. Perhaps you just feel incredibly alone, like Elijah did. But somewhere, sometime, you quit. I want you to know something. It's okay. I'm going to tell you why it is. Because God won't quit on you even if you quit on him. And you need to know that. I can't possibly understand the depths of you and where you are right now. But I want you to know something. I bet if you look at your life, you'll see the evidence of him still there. I bet you'll see how he's provided for you in some way, how he's cared for you in some way, how he's watched over you. He's tried to get you rest. I bet you'll see that. And I hope you know that he wants to talk to you. That's what he wants. He wants to have a conversation with you. As a matter of fact, I know what he wants. He wants to ask you to talk to him. He wants to hear you. He wants to hear what you have to say, and I believe this on my heart. He will be so moved by what you have to say. He will be so moved by it that he will crouch down and he will listen to you. You will know that he is there. And more than that, when he can, he will tell you what you need to know. He will tell you something. He'll tell you stuff that will drastically change your perspective on your situation. He will offer you comfort through others. That's what he'll do. He will not quit on you. He can't, and he won't. And you need to know that. There's something Elijah did that blows me away. I wanted to encourage you because I wanted you to know that you're okay. If you quit, one of the godliest men on the planet quit. And I wanted you to know that God hasn't quit on you. And I hope that you can observe your life and look at your life and see that. But I wanted to do something because Elijah did something that was so important. When he was given the opportunity to talk to God, to go and meet with God, you know what he did? He went. With the last bit of energy he had, the last bit of drive he had and motivation he had, he traveled that 40 days and he got to where God was and he spoke to him honestly about how he's feeling where he was. If Trey will come, I want to give you guys that opportunity this morning. If you will, with every head bowed and every eye closed this morning. There's some of you here, and you know who you are. There's some of you here this morning, and you have quit. And if you haven't quit, you definitely are thinking about quitting. The mission seems impossible. Following God just seems too difficult. Too hard. Where you've gotten to, you can't even begin to understand or describe how you've gotten to where you are today. I want to give you an opportunity right here. Because then I hope you can hear his voice. But God's inviting you. He's inviting to hear what you have to say. And this morning, this might be the first time, this might be the 10th time, but even if it's the 10th time, I want you to do it. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now, you just to stand up out of your seat and just come to this altar if that's something you need to share with God. If you've got something on your heart and you need to share it with God, I want you to know this altar is open. This is the mountain right here. Because you may have quit on him, but he hasn't quit on you, not for a day, not for a second. He hadn't quit on you. He's speaking to your heart and he's saying, what are you doing here? I'm telling you, don't miss this opportunity if you need it. Don't you dare miss this opportunity if you need it. This is special. I know that. All God wants to do is he wants to hear how you feel. He wants to hear what you're going through. And I believe with all my heart He wants to help you through it. I know He will. God, I want you to hear their prayers this morning. Hear them speak to you. And if there are people out there in the seats that are too worried to come up here, I pray they'll speak to you. I pray they'll share their hearts with you. They'll share their struggles with you. I'm going to be honest, God, following you is not always easy. Trusting you is not always easy. Plans don't always go the way we think they should go. People are people and will most definitely hurt us and come after us. And sometimes we feel alone. But I know this. If we quit on you, you will not quit on us. You will pursue us as far as you need to pursue us, to the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves, to the places where we feel absolutely confused. God, you will come to us right then and you will provide clarity to us. And you will care for us and you will hear us out. Father, I pray for each person up here. I pray that you will be such a presence. I pray that you will pass by and they will experience you in such a real way. Father, I'm thankful for all that you are, all that you've been to me, for the times when I felt like I couldn't continue on, and you were there to move me. Thank you, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. I hope you know how much you're loved. I hope you know how much He cares about you. He is a great God, isn't He? He is a great God, isn't He? Amen. Thank you so much for being here today. I love you. Have a great week. See you next Sunday. You're dismissed. Thank you.